Hello and welcome to Women Climbing into Tech Executive Roles. We are so thrilled that you are here joining us for this conversation today, and guiding our discussion is Christy Lamar. Christy is a multidisciplinary senior business and tech executive and a C-suite advisor with over 20 years of experiences developing strategies and driving transformational change at large, complex global organizations that deliver sustainable value. She's very passionate about DE&I, and she's going to be guiding us through this very important conversation today. Christy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Brittany. Appreciate it. And thank you all for having us. This is a great opportunity to have a really important conversation. I have the honor of being joined by three really incredible women this afternoon. First, I've got Lakshmi Ellis-Warpu, who is the Global Chief Information Officer of Sanofi. Also, Johanna Jones, who's the CEO and President at the Information Technology Senior Management Forum, and Evelyn Anderson, who's a Distinguished Engineer at IBM. I'm going to give them each a little quick bio. So Lakshmi leads digital transformation, technology innovation, and business continuity on a global scale for Fortune 50 companies. She's got over 25 years of experience spanning a number of industries. She's led multiple successful large-scale enterprise transformation initiatives. And in her spare time, or hopefully she finds a way to do it all the time, she's passionate about STEM, DE&I, and global health causes. So welcome, Lakshmi. And we are also joined, as I mentioned, by Johanna Jones. She is the president and CTO of ITSMF. She's got 25 years of experience as well across marketing, communications, and executive leadership experiences. Her expertise includes developing comprehensive strategies around workforce development opportunities for African Americans and more. She's creating career pipelines and leadership opportunities for all. She designed an IT career pathway at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville for non-traditional students. And I can't wait to hear about what you've done there. So welcome, Johanna. It's great to be with you today. And last, but certainly not least, is Evelyn. She's got over 25 years of experience in IT security, and she's a distinguished IBM engineer, as well as an IBM Master Innovator. She has served her organization across a number of global roles, and she has always had a strong focus on technology, security, privacy, and threat management. So welcome, welcome. I think it's funny that we've all got 25 years of experience. Clearly, we all started working when we were 10.
Yes.
Right.
Love it.
Right. So together we're 100.
Yeah, exactly. So as Brittany mentioned, we're here to talk about getting more women into technology executive roles. And while we're not here to really kind of debate the case for change, I can't help but start with a little bit of data around kind of our current situation and current events. You know, we've been experiencing, the great resignation. Now it's being called a little bit of the great regret. But this may not actually be the case for women. There was actually a recent survey indicating that nearly 40% of women are actively looking for a new employer, and it's mainly due to burnout. And frankly, over half of women want to leave their employer in the next 2 years, and only 10% of women surveyed plan to stay within their organization for more than 5. Like, that is devastating. I will say it's important, and I think this is kind of an important lens for us to consider, as that for those respondents that identified themselves as leaders, 50% of them actually indicate that they'll stay at their organization. So to me, that completely reinforces the need for us to get more and more women into leadership, or really reinforce the idea of kind of leadership at all levels, right? Like, it doesn't matter at what level of an organization, and we're all leaders in training. So my question is going to be, as women, should we and can we use this change or talk about it in a way that helps us and others climb kind of the proverbial ladder to leadership, to reach higher levels in the organization and get to the C-suite, right? So we use this kind of movement as a way to do that, or in a way to ignite the conversation. And so we just change our mindset to know that we don't necessarily have to always focus on retention, but we can support complicated, or what we'd say normally kind of complicated, career paths. So Lakshmi, I'm going to start with you. You are a woman that has truly grown up through the ranks and navigated across organizations, always been in technology. And I would say it's a little bit of a non-linear career path, and it provided you with a variety of, advancements. Now you're now an SVP and the global CIO of an incredible organization. So kind of tell me a little bit about kind of your path and how you think about this movement and how we can use this to our advantage.
Well, first of all, I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much, Christy, and always thank you so much, Edie, and honored to be here with such esteemed colleagues and friends, Johanna and Evelyn. Wow, just listening to what you've all done, it's amazing. It's kind of interesting. I think I'll start off my answer with a question. How many of you thought that your career would go a certain way and even your life? And in reality, how has it been different, or where are you on that progression? The reason I ask this is I think it's a really interesting, some people are very clear on where they want to be, what they want to be, even their titles and positions. And I think that's amazing. I think that ambition and the right way to do that is, go for that, go for the gold, go for all of the great, things that can be offered, as far as the sky is not a limit, it's even much more. I was not one of those people. I'm an electrical engineer, probably the ones that you think of, pretty much introverted, wanting to just sit either at home or in a cube and, do my work and my values combined. And I think it'll probably be the same for all of you. I would not be surprised, is a combination of doing well at what I do, but also my family and my home. And about 30 years ago, it was really hard to get hybrid work from home. And I actually stayed home for 7 years as our daughter and son, who are now adults, were born. And I was very fortunate because I was able to do that with my husband and myself financially. But the reason I asked the question of where are you in your career? I started at Procter & Gamble. I thought I would be there. My husband and I were both there the rest of our lives. Well, guess what happened? Change. And everybody talks about change and how challenging and difficult it can be. We were outsourced, and that was all of IT in 2003. Went to HP, and from there, was very fortunate to get recruited to a Coca-Cola, running a lot of infrastructure and users, digital coupons, and then to Boeing, running all of their systems, everything except what's on the airplane. But the things that I learned were, when change happens, which it will, whether you were intending to stay somewhere a long time or you were not, at first we go through kind of all types of different emotions, but really utilize it to evaluate, what are your values? What are you looking for? What are you trying to do? I didn't have all those answers. If somebody said to me, oh, you knew you would be a CXO or a CIO and this and that, no clue, had no ambition even for that. Secondly, what is it you wanted a larger life, kind of a purpose of a level? And as I kind of went from these various companies and was fortunate to get recruited, I was there 5, 6, 7 years, long enough to make an impact. I started really realizing I wanted not just a purposeful life, but a purposeful career. And in each of the areas, in each of the companies that I was honored to be at, I found purpose in various ways. The beacon of light that is ED and Women Business Collaborative was at my Boeing, tenure. And at Sanofi, and the reason I joined here, many of you may or may not have heard of it. It's a $50 billion or 50 billion euro organization company that is, we manufacture everything from insulin to blood pressure medicines. But in that is searching for the cure for cancer, for children, for breast cancer. I think so much of it has hit our various lives that, to me, almost everything that I've done so far has brought me to this place, the wonderful people, leadership, and mentors. So you are right, it was nonlinear, but in many ways I am so blessed because it brought me to a place that says, not only am I doing what I believe in, but I'm doing it in a way that impacts millions of lives because of the position and the leadership that I'm blessed to have. So yeah. Christy, hopefully that kind of shares my career and what I was thinking.
I love it. Thank you very much. And so, Evelyn, I imagine maybe your answer to this question might be slightly similar, but you have a very different kind of career path, right? Like, it was very defined since you've been with IBM. And I imagine that you've been presented with a million opportunities outside of IBM. Like, what kept you there?
There was a couple of things. I mean, one of the biggest things that I've always appreciated about IBM is the way things are designed, where I had excellent advocates, I had excellent sponsors, I had excellent mentors along the way, and I'm not a quiet person. So I made it very clear what my goals, my desires, where I wanted to go. It was one of those, I wasn't exactly sure how to get from point A to point B, But because of me being vocal and letting people know my interests, my goals, they helped me along the way with stretch assignments. I mean, anytime there was a new opportunity that became available, I was the first name that came because I was staying in front of them, saying, hey, I'm over here hiding in the corner. Don't forget about me. And because of that, I feel like one of the things that, ladies have to do is make your presence known. Sometimes we kind of sit back and look at it that if we're just working hard, that people will recognize that we're working hard and will automatically reach out to us. And that's not always the case. I feel like you have to not only work hard, but you also have to let people know that what your desires, your dreams, your goals are. And, when things come along, if they're not volunteering, you start volunteering, start asking, is there an opportunity that I'm not aware of that, is there a stretch assignment, and get out of your comfort zone. That was the one thing that I prided myself in, that a lot of times, there was areas that I didn't know, I didn't have expertise in, I didn't know anything about becoming an inventor. And I became a master inventor with IBM. I always thought that was those techie research engineering type folks. That wasn't me. But I was always asking questions and inquiring. And that's one of the things that sometimes, because of culture and just things as a whole, we oftentimes find ourselves kind of sitting back and waiting for someone to ask us versus reaching out and asking ourselves. And the biggest thing with IBM is they had a very clear on the technical career roadmap for me to get from point A to point B. And, I was being promoted, I was being elevated, I was having additional opportunities. They have programs that advocated for women, for minorities. And I saw the benefits, and that were oftentimes my colleagues and friends that I would talk to at other companies. They would explain that, yeah, we have this, but it's kind of on paper, because when the opportunities actually come along, it wasn't often that those women and minorities were actually being elevated into those roles. Whereas I saw a different picture at IBM. I saw where, from my own personal experience, that I was actually being elevated. So I felt I was very happy and pleased with the company and how things were going for me as a whole, and didn't see a need to go somewhere else and struggle with the things that my friends were saying that they were struggling with within their organizations.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
And frankly, like a great kind of segue to you, Johanna, right? So you're really like IT SMF is really focused on working to increase representation and diversify IT, right? To end stigma, reduce bias. What approaches are you taking, and how are you coaching organizations to support this effort? What are similar tactics that we can all use to advance underrepresented professionals?
Yes, so thank you so much. I can totally relate to Lakshmi's story about the power of relationships and influence, as well as Evelyn's approach by making herself visible in the organization. So ITSMF was founded 25 years ago by a group of Black technologists that were in the C-suite in Fortune 500 companies, five of our 14 founders were women. And at the time, 25 years ago, they had a dinner group, and they were constantly voicing, why are we the only ones? We shouldn't be the only ones. Going forward, we won't be the only ones. And so they designed this organization with the premise that when women and leaders of color are not represented in the C-suite, it's not because of lack of talent. It's not because of lack of passion. It is because of the lack of relationships. That how many of us are in the place that we are in because we had the right mentors and sponsors. And if you're talking about executive roles in Fortune 500s, 100s, and 50s, those are often jobs that are not posted, that are not online. They're phone calls that are made to people that says, do you know someone who'd be great for this role? And if you don't have the relationships of people who know you, who trust you, who believe in you, and who are willing to put your name in the hat, then you are not, despite how brilliant, how talented, how hard you work, how persistent you are, how much you raise your hand, if if your name isn't on the tip of the tongue of people who are in these roles already, you're not going to get there. So our organization is 100% about building your network of people that are already in these C-suite executive roles. And the final polishing, which is all about the soft skills, executive presence, the differences between a mentor and a sponsor, understanding your own power and understanding yourself so that regardless of what room you're in, you can be yourself, you can be vulnerable, you can be authentic, and of course, advance in technology in Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah. You framed the notion of relationships in a way I had never really thought of, and I knew it, but I didn't articulate it that way. And the reality is we should really be fostering our relationships like as a part of the course of business, if you will, like treat ourselves like a business. And frankly, that's the beauty of the Women's Business Collaborative, right? Like we're surrounded by each other today. Like use this network, use each other. I'm certain that anybody could ping any one of us on LinkedIn as a way to build a network, right?
100%. One of the things that I heard, recently that is resoundingly clear is that treat yourself like a brand and your employer is your customer.
Yeah, I love that. So we're living through kind of this war on talent, and it's really challenging in technology disciplines that frankly, all four of us live in on a daily basis. And CIOs and tech executives are really trying to build and retain this workforce, especially in high demand areas. There's a statistic that says 3.5 million jobs need to be filled by 2025. Like that's terrifying, especially considering what we're all doing. But to me, it also brings tremendous opportunity. So my question for all three of you is, how do you navigate the complexities of creating, a workforce and, access to opportunities, but at the same time, diverse representation, right? Like not just making sure we take a person and put them in because we have a spot, we need a live body. So how do you navigate that and balance that so that we are really creating the right outcomes for others?
Where do you want to start? Which one of us?
I'll let you. Imagine IBM's living it, right?
Yeah, I'll start. I mean, one of the things that I feel like organizations have to look at for this particular area is aligning their business goals. When you're looking to try to fill these gaps, one of the programs that we actually had last year, which I thought was an excellent program, is you want to address your business goals, but you also want to establish kind of an incentive plan to motivate people to even want to go in and pursue these particular skills. I mean, I hate to say it, but everyone wants to understand what's in it for me beyond just, getting this additional skill, gaining this additional knowledge and so forth. We had our program, of course, I mean, most IT companies were driving towards cloud environments. And we wanted to have so many employees that had level 3 certifications around cloud. So they kicked off an incentive program that was driven around both minorities, ladies, and so forth, where you could go in and become level 3 cert. And there was a financial incentive that was tied in with it to make sure that we were addressing our business goal, that we wanted to make sure we had this skill set as we're pursuing additional customers, making sure that we're ready for the cloud and will be able to support their environments. But we also, not only do you gain the actual certification that you can take anywhere, but you also had an incentive program to motivate you to go in and pursue, giving up your weekends, your evening hours, times to study, to go forward with this. And it's no matter where you're looking, whether it's with whatever area of people that you're trying to gain and pull in, whether it's women, whether it's minorities, whether it's just generalized. We have to start trying to balance out so that it's truly a win-win program. And that was one of the things that I really loved about the program, because so many people that weren't really even considering and didn't have those technical skills, when you wrap money around it, an incentive to motivate them to gain the skills, a lot of people signed up for it. And I think a lot of times companies have to look at it from that perspective and start promoting and pursuing more incentive programs to pull people in.
So you brought up maybe subtly, and I'm going to be pretty bold about it, right? Like the idea of goals and business goals. Should organizations like be transparent about it, to say this is where we're at, and at the same time, here's our ambitions. You're relatively new, Lakshmi, to Sanofi, but would love to kind of know like your experience and your perspective on that.
Well, that was a perfect question and segue because, Johanna, you had kind of said, hey, there's a brand, right? And I love the way you said there's a personal brand and there's the corporate brand. And Evelyn, I think you're, driving towards the fact that the companies and corporations have to invest. But when I'm recruiting and I'm looking for someone, to your point, or many people, I kind of have to put on my marketing hat, and I'm not always very good at it, but in my mind, and even when, I was fortunate enough to be either recruited and you all are led multiple times, when I made changes, it went back to 2-3 different things. One was, I always align it to my personal values and goals and ethics and values. And that and I think most of you do too, talk it and align it with my own family. And that's not just, obviously it is important that there must be equity in terms of all that we're doing, whether it be role, position, compensation, but there really goes to why am I here and what am I doing? What is that impact? As I am talking to talent and as I'm trying to recruit them, in my mind, it is the question of what is that person? What is she bringing to me and to us? And what is it that I'm bringing to her? And there's the corporate aspect of what we bring, great, aspects of what we're driving towards, whether it be IBMs and the ITMFs or the Sanofis or anyone, which says, this is what we are about. And then there's me. As we always hear, the reason that most people will leave a company tends to be because of their manager or their leader. So what is it that I can bring? What is it that I can do to, as you said, whether it be mentor, sponsor, advocate, and have a very realistic expectation that says, usually when we're looking for someone from the outside, because there's a gap, there's either a gap in talent or there's a gap in what we need to do. So that equates to challenge. It equates to opportunities that say, I'm hiring someone obviously for their skills and talent, but I'm also hiring them very much for a career, not just for a position. And it is also to think more broadly. The times that I've gone to different places, it hasn't been come do what you've done. It has been, I need to think differently as I bring someone in to say, you know what? You really drove infrastructure and you really drove this aspect of IT and you modernized, drove to cloud. I would really love to see what you do in digital and business transformation now. Let's expand those skills. So it's about people, it's about our being able to recruit, but it's also making sure that we find the hidden gems. To your point of Evelyn, I love what you stated, that you made people aware. You shined, right? You made sure that they could see that brilliance of who you are as a gem. And I kind of say that they're hidden gems. So it's our job to kind of make sure we find them and then attract them in a very, pretty clear marketing way with realistic expectations that aligns to their goals and purposes. And you will be surprised because at times people are willing to compromise on other aspects of what they may be looking for in a career, location, or different things, versus realizing and saying, you know what, I'm here and I'm here because of the purpose of what we're doing and what we're going to do together.
I love it.
Yes. Christy, I 100% agree that corporations should share their diversity, equity, inclusion goals and publish annual updates to hold themselves accountable. That organizations like ITSMF partner with corporations who are interested in retaining their diverse talent, investing and growing their diverse talent, and identifying diverse talent. And one of the ways we're able to build those approaches is by understanding their diversity, equity, inclusion goals. And just like Evelyn said, that the organizations that tie their diversity, equity, inclusion goals to growth and innovation strategies are the most successful. We believe that diversity, equity, inclusion should not be a standalone program. It should be a part of the culture that is integrated into every business line, every corporate strategy, every corporate value, and across the administration. And some of the ways that we help organization achieve those goals is one, through our academies. We have a 9-month academies where corporate partners identify diverse leaders of promise within their enterprise that they want to invest and develop for the C-suite. And one of our academies, Emerge, is 100% dedicated to women, mid-level women of color in technology roles. And through that program, they're able to see that their companies believe in them, see them as high potential, and it does something to shift their motivation and their experience within that organization to know that their manager is seeing that there's potential and there's growth for them. Secondly, again, they're able to build that network where they can pick up the phone and identify a person who is been where they've been, understands their situation, and whether they're going through a merger within their company or whether they're experiencing what it's like to transfer and live globally, they're able to experience that network. And then in addition to that, corporations are able to network as well. And whether they're looking for diverse talent, they're able to be in environments where that is plentiful. I was recently visiting one of our corporate partners in Charlotte, and they talked about the fact that we're able to hit our diversity, equity, inclusion targets. And I said, how? And they said, well, we have a partnership with 36 historically Black colleges and universities. And I said, 36? And I thought, how many corporations talk to 2, 3, 4 universities and say we can't find enough talent there? And so to that, I say, whether you're looking to diversify your leadership through women or for leaders of color, it means a very intense and rigorous investment to achieve your goal. Just like any other business strategy, you don't tepidly approach it, you aggressively approach it and put all the resources behind that you need to achieve the goal.
Absolutely. I love it. And, you all kind of like the idea of like, it's not a puzzle piece, right? You don't say somebody's got these skills, we're going to automatically put them into this role. And the reality is like, this is not a zero-sum game. There is so much opportunity and there's so much talent that we have to figure out ways to identify it, ignite it, and celebrate it and capture people's passions in new ways. So, I hope that we're literally not having this conversation when my children are my age, and that we're going to start to change the world in really meaningful ways. So knowing this is not a zero-sum game, there's plenty of opportunity. There was a recent survey by Korn Ferry that women today are about 18% of all CIOs in the Fortune 500. And we've seen steady growth. In 1995, for reference, it was about 5%. So that's pretty substantial in the time that we've been working, right? All of us. And CMOs and CHROs, which I'll say, I think they're kind of traditionally like the pink job, are 36 and 55% respectively in terms of their representation in the C-suite. And CEO is still just 6%. It is devastating. So what's happening, do you think, within organizations where we're increasingly seeing more women at the top of their technology function, especially when it's been such a heavily kind of male-dominated space? So how can we support and scale that momentum in really tactical and meaningful ways? Well, actually, can I call on you first?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I was just looking to see who else. Okay, good. I think that first of all, what still concerns me though is the pipeline. I'll be pretty frank with you because, and for those of us who've been in the technical or any of the STEM fields, we know, when I was in college, I think that University of Akron, we graduating wise, maybe there was 2 or 3 women. I happened to be the only married one at that time, but I thought we were seeing an increase. And over the last few years, unfortunately, what I'm seeing and hearing is that there's, again, a kind of a dip in this. And I think It's ensuring that we're really attracting and emphasizing what that talent looks like. Even to the previous question regarding, the war for talent, I think where we help and where I've been helped has been, it's not just putting a person in a role, it's willing to bring in talent and saying, what do you want? I will shape a role for you because you are that good, or I will make sure when you come into the points of both Johanna and Evelyn that says, I will bring in a network for you. And I think a lot of, and the sponsors and the advocates, so you get that exposure. And what does that look like? Because I think there's an unspoken network that we've seen from many others who we don't realize. And it's kind of, as you said, Christy, we're hoping and praying this doesn't happen into the next generations where we still have to talk about it. I didn't think 20, 25 years ago, we would still be talking about how can we ensure that we can get women the right exposure and into the C-suite roles. I think the huge aspect of this really goes to the recognition that as women, not only do we bring the various skills that, show, sometimes we have to work 100, 200, 300% harder, diverse women, women of color and all women. And we show that, but then at other times, we also actually have to demonstrate, and we do have soft skills. We have an ability to be able to collaborate. We have tough targets that we all need to achieve. And it's kind of interesting, and I think you all see this, of how do you interact, or how does it kind of work with different people? And it's not to only stereotype in any way, but I think that the way that we communicate, the way that we articulate, the way that we connect with what is, again, so important to everybody, as far as I keep going back to our values and our ethics and why we're here in that purposeful career. And I think as people start realizing, you know what, no matter whether it's a man or a woman, and the leadership that they bring in can be extremely effective. And depending on that brand, as you said, Johanna, over and over, what is it we want to convey? I think that the realization, we go back to over half of the world's buying power comes from females. If we can't even reflect the customers or the patients, breast cancer, which majority we know are women, and of course men do get it too, unfortunately. When we talk about children and childhood cancer and eradicating it at Sanofi, that we're trying to do, and we know that more often than not, caretakers or parents or guardians tend to be the women, and many times single women, depending on the households and where we're coming from globally. Who do you think is going to be that much more invested and needing this and wanting it? So I think that starting to see the leaders that have been in the C-suite and realizing, wow, there's so much more than the traditional stereotype of a female in the C-suite position, that says there's leadership with thought, with purpose, with compassion, with empathy, is what is our role, and what I want to demonstrate over and over, that says, who else are we missing? Let's bring them in. Let's bring them in. Let's bring her in.
So Evelyn, how many women are there at IBM that are distinguished engineers, and how do we make more?
Mm-hmm. There is definitely room for improvement when it comes to that, because I think when we were talking, I was the third African-American female distinguished engineer at IBM. So, and then with the Kyndryl and IBM split, I think for a while there, there was only two, and I think there's 4 of us now. So there's still a huge disparity, between that, but there's lots of programs and incentives to try to address that. I mean, from a career map, and I think I shared with you guys a week or so ago that I had just actually kicked off a new program within IBM called Developing Black Technical Leaders, where part of our goal is to start trying to address that gap, where we're partnering with some of the other folks that that are on the technical career map to make sure that they have the appropriate sponsorship. So when we know about educations, when we know about opportunities that will help to, tick the little box that they need for that additional skill set, for that additional certification, whatever it may be, that we're actually working with them to address that. So there's lots of incentive programs around it, but one of the things, we had a conversation about women trying to re-enter the workplace. Someone was asking me about this just a week or so ago, and I was saying, I don't think we actually have a program about that. But then I started inquiring about it and found out that we actually do have programs. But what disturbed me about it is, why isn't it advertised that much, that we know about these things? So when we know that there's ladies that are out there that are trying to re-enter the workforce, that may have taken off for maternity, you know, whatever the cases may be, that and that was one of the things that kind of concerned me. So it's another, you know, tick box that I've added as a part of our program with developing the technical leaders, to make sure that if we know of those types of candidates, that we're making sure that it's advertised, that people are aware of those programs, so that when they need those additional skills, they need that additional support, that we have a true support structure for them, from the mentorship, the sponsorship, the, you know, the courses for upskilling, the, whether it's the leadership skills, the technical, whatever type of gaps that they have, we're trying to structure and make sure that those controls are in place to help across the board, because there's still lots and lots of gaps. And the biggest thing is, a lot of times we just didn't have the appropriate advocates in place to help us to move to the next levels. So it's something that I know that I've, you know, taken on personally, that I'm working with a group of other minority distinguished engineers, where we're trying to formulate this, and some of the other executives within IBM. And we're just kind of at the ground level kicking this off and starting with it. But it is something that we're trying to close the gaps on.
I, for many reasons, love that you brought up, you know, whether you said it or not, like returnships or return to work programs. You know, we've seen that COVID really exacerbated women, especially leaving the workforce. And what, to me, a great time for us to create new legacy building careers and financial stability for women in technology disciplines, right? Like, we all know how to use a smartphone now, right? Like, we're all technology natives to some degree. And so technology is such a place for us to create momentum around that. And the reality is, it doesn't have to be big. Like, organizations can start small with this place that they've got, you know, where they know they've got scaled demand over time, and build that. And I hope that every organization that, we actually recently did a survey, like maybe 40% of organizations have return programs. I think that, like, we need a coalition of the willing to talk about it. It's almost like, you know, if it doesn't fit here, go there, because I think that actually will start some of the leakage problems that you kind of addressed, Lakshmi. Like, there is so much leakage across the pipeline. Let's bring some of these really capable women back into the workforce and put them in careers that will provide stability and longevity.
Yeah, and Christy, if I may, I mean, even though I was unusual, I know how it feels to be away from the workforce, the technical workforce, for 7 years. Again, this was, you know, close to 30 years ago, but the point being, it's scary coming back, because, you know, here I am as a double E, and I was working on circuits and different things. And it's like, how do I remember all of this? My focus for 7 years was my children and my home, and I was blessed for that. But coming back, and that's where one is, you know, we need to take a chance on people. And it goes back to, what is that skills and talent? Because somebody took a chance on me, and I would never have thought in my lifetime I would ever have these opportunities. Second, what is that, the competencies, the talent, the skills that we need as leaders? Because what I realized, and it took me a while, there was a lot of insecurity that said, well, everybody around me already advanced, and I wasn't worried about level, but more of knowledge. And then I realized, but wait a minute, I gained a lot in 7 years. I gained, and I learned about compassion. I learned about leadership, and how do you get, you know, temper tantrums in 2-year-olds and wonderful things in children. And I realized, you know what, I gained a lot of maturity, and I gained a lot about life. How could that may not be something that's important for those who are coming back? And I think, I know different companies call it return flight, you know, trying to do the right thing that says you should not have to choose between your values, your family, your health, your children, and or anyone else around you, your parents, and a career. It should be a given that says, do what you need to do at that right time. A lifetime in a career is for decades. That specific time is a very small one, and we should not be penalizing, but we should actually be rewarding people who have the courage and take these bold actions and saying, you know what, you're welcome with open arms. Good news is I am seeing it in companies more and more, but I don't know that I'm seeing it as much. And I think my other concern is after with the pandemic, we're still feeling that. And I think, by the way, I believe hybrid or ability to work from home also is so critical and key, especially depending on what the home situation may be, or just because of personal preference. My concern is in 1 to 2 to 3 years that we will lose touch with that and we'll forget that says there was a pandemic, unfortunately and tragically, but that led to a change in the way that we work so that people have a lot more than their plate on at their home, or even if they don't, for whatever reason, it's not, it can be any reason. And that says, we want you because where you are in your life and you're ready to be back in this workforce and with our company. And I think it's a really important message, Christy, that you're saying, and Evelyn, absolutely agree with you.
Couldn't agree more. So we're slow on, or we're light on time. I cannot believe we've already been chatting for 45 minutes almost. So I've got one question that I'll pose to all of you, and I'll start with you, Johanna. We've seen the data shows that women leave their technology and their STEM careers at about the 10-year mark. And I love you talk about the academy, Johanna, which is where I wanted to start with you. So if you're mentoring a woman who's 10 years into her career and she's working in enterprise technology or some sort of technology discipline, and she's really ambitious, but she's really burnt out, right? So maybe it's the pandemic, maybe she's caring for a parent, maybe she is a parent, right? What do you tell her? Like, how do you inspire her to stay? Or what do you tell her to be for her next steps?
That's the absolute perfect scenario. I actually, a week before I started with ITSMF, I was talking to a technology leader who has an MBA, degree, computer science degree, had been working in corporate America for actually 25 years and was experiencing this burnout. And she said that sometimes it feels like I'm swimming with the sharks and I get tired of swimming with the sharks. And she talked about leading a team of 50 people and having to travel to Utah to work on a 5G project. And she's MBA, 25 years, a go-getter. And she says that for the first time, she's working with the trades. And one of the presidents of the trades said, little girl, I don't know who you think you are, but this is not how we do it here. And refused to address her and decided that he was going to talk to her white male direct report instead of her. She's married. She has children at home. She's supervising 50 people in another state across the country, and she's leading a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar project with 50 people. She has to get the job done. She doesn't have time to lick her wounds. But this is the reality, right? This is why sometimes we say, this is not worth it. And so this experience of swimming with the sharks is something that we prepare people for through ITSMF, right? If you know early on that sometimes your challenge is not just going to be a technology challenge, that sometimes your challenge is going to be about culture. It's going to be about how to influence people, how to problem solve. And you are prepared, you have this sense of self, this confidence in who you are, and this network of people, and you know how to move and influence and change people from all different types of background. When you're prepared for that, and you understand that you're not alone, that you can pick up the phone and vent and be emotional and troubleshoot and then get back to your job, then we can do it. Because there are these things that they don't teach you in business school. They don't teach you in any type of computer science tech, program. But when we show up as leaders and women in this situation, we deal with it.
Yeah. Lakshmi, what would you tell this woman?
First of all, one of the things, and I think this is something who knows my family and me, and sometimes my own daughter and what she's experienced, what you just described, and whether it's burnt out and if it's a management situation type of a thing is, first and foremost, I say you have to have a place of safety. You have to have a sense of peace and security. And that is no compromise, zero tolerance. So whether it be microaggressions, whether it be any type of more than that. To your point, the situation, Johanna, you were describing, that's just unacceptable. And we should not in any way, shape, or form. One is you got to deal with it the right way. And being burnt out when you're vulnerable, you're tired, is even that much more challenging. So the question is, how do you remove yourself from that situation to a place where your true colors can shine? You know, you have to evaluate, why are we burnt out? Is it burnt out because of the technology aspect? And that's okay too. Is it your management? Is it the culture? Is it the company? Is it the role? And so being able to have the right friends, network. And I saw the question regarding, is there a difference between an ally and a sponsor? I think an ally is someone, no matter where you are, where you can just have these conversations and say, what else is out there? What do I need to do to create peace? And sometimes it means take time off, get back to your roots, who you are, those values and your ethics. Then find your sponsors. Find who's out there to say, you know what, did you realize this is available? And it can be something very different. It can be something same path, but get yourself into out of harm's way, whether it be emotionally or mentally or physically or anything else, anything that's draining you and burning you out, to be able to recognize that, and then get yourself into that place that's safe, secure, peaceful, and say, this is what I want to be doing. It may not be what I thought, or it may be a different path. And maybe I'll get back to that same path again, but I may not, but it's going to lead me to an amazing places and an amazing journey. And it has to be that, be selfish, just be selfish. Don't feel guilty. Don't make excuses. Be selfish. Take care of yourself, your family, and the most important part of life. And then be able to then reevaluate, make the right decisions, and care for yourself first. As we say, you know what, you get on an airplane, you put the mask on yourself first, then those around you, even if they're your loved ones. Do that, and then figure out where you want to go and use those allies and your sponsors. Just be selfish. Take care of yourself.
Evelyn, I hate to cut you off. I'll give you 30 seconds, but I got to hand it over to
yeah.
Brittany. This has been amazing. We can keep talking.
Yes, definitely. And love the responses from both Johanna and Lakshmi. Those were excellent responses. I mean, the only thing that I would add to this is, one of the things that I always look at when I'm mentoring someone that's explaining to me that they're burnout, is trying to get to the very root cause of it. Is it that you're burnout because you're overwhelmed because of your job, or is it that you're burnout because you're bored, you're doing, your job has become routine, you're not being challenged? I feel like you have to get to the root of the source of understanding why you're burnout before you can actually make a decision on which path you need to take. And then based on that response, that's where you'll determine if it's you're not being challenged, then let's look for other opportunities. If it's I'm overwhelmed, then you need to speak up and take care of yourself. Just as Lakshmi and Johanna mentioned there, you need to be selfish and do what's best for you and your family first. So thank you.
Yeah, love it. Brittany, over to you. Thank you all so much. We could keep chatting.
Yes, this was a powerful conversation. I think regardless of industry, if you were a woman and you listened into this, you definitely gained a lot. Just a couple things that I heard quickly: be vocal and let people know your interests. Treat yourself like a brand and your employee as the client. That is a mic drop. And corporations should absolutely publish their goals and have annual updates. So thank you so much to all of you for the powerful insights and inspiration today on women climbing in tech exec roles. And we will see you all in the next session.
Thank you.